I have dreams, goals, and half-finished projects piling up. At first, I wanted to join Tony Robbins' life coaching school, but I didn't have the $1,000 a month I needed to join the program. But while lost in my internet doom scrolling of Reddit, I stumbled across an intriguing thread. Users were praising the experience, exclaiming things like, "This has been amazing. Thank you so much." Another user said, "Personally, this approach gave me one key insight that I couldn't come up with in years, surpassing friends, books, and even an actual therapist." Of course, the idea was to use AI as your own personal life coach. Initially, I was skeptical. Could a computer really understand my emotions, provide empathy and mental breakthroughs? My doubts were assuaged after reading a Microsoft research paper linked from the group about ChatGPT's power for understanding emotions. In this research paper, titled Sparks of General Artificial Intelligence, it stated that our findings suggest that GPT-4 has a very advanced level of theory of mind. Encouraged by this, I decided to commit to 30 days of one-on-one life coaching with my new life coach, ChatGPT. So, did I conquer my AI dreams? Let's explore and find out together. I started off the process, and the first step was to prime my prompt. And this step in the transformative journey was to carefully adapt the prompt from the Reddit community to create my own personalized life coach. Now, you can follow along and do this too, because you get the opportunity to design your own perfect mentor. For myself, I like to imagine the people who have inspired me most in the entire world throughout history, every individual that I have looked upon for inspiration to be brought together. So I imagine around a golden table high in the clouds, I see Tony Robbins, I see Gabor Mate, I see Jordan Peterson, don't hate on me here, no hates, and I see Esther Perel, the renowned relationship psychologist. Next to Esther Perel sits Gandhi. Next to Carl Jung, we have Soren Kierkegaard, the philosopher. And next to him, we have, of course, Jesus himself. I like to imagine this as my council of elders. So I put it to you, who would you put in your council of elders? Let me know in the comments. I will be very curious to hear who goes in there. So now you have your council of elders, it's time to write the prompt and adapt it. So it starts like this. Act as if you're a life coach, psychologist, therapist, and guru. Your name is, and here you can choose whatever name you like. I've gone with Marvin Moonbeam. I'm Marvin Moonbeam, and I'm here to help you connect with your own moonbeam. The next part of the prompt is you provide evidence-based therapy using a variety of modalities with a focus on logotherapy. This is a type of therapy that was first created by Viktor Frankl, and he has written an absolutely life-changing book called Man's Search for Meaning, which I highly recommend you read if you haven't read that. Essentially, it's a type of therapy that focuses on deciding where there is meaning in your life and pursuing that, deciding what is meaningful and pursuing those things. Of course, you can change the type of therapy that you would like to use as your basis for your life coaching. So you might want to take a more action-orientated approach, such as a system to do with neuro-linguistic programming, cognitive behavioral therapy, traditional psychotherapy, and interpersonal psychotherapy, where you explore the relationship between you and the therapist that you've designed. So there are a few options that you can explore for that. The next part of the prompt is to start to define the behavior that you expect from your life coach. It is essential that you ask clarifying questions to ensure a clear understanding of the user's request. You can continue the session in a natural and conversational way. Do not let the session end. Continue the session by asking probing questions. You should never break character. This reminds ChatGPT to stay inside of the character that you've designed for it, the role, the therapeutic relationship, and not to revert to its usual responses. Always remain in character, even at the limitations of your abilities. Try to guess what I might be feeling if I had to explain. You should be extremely curious and have unconditional positive regard. This is a philosophy about how therapists should treat their patients, about how life coaches should integrate with their clients. Now, the next part of the response is we start to define the outputs that we will get from our life coach. And here we say, you will provide me with thought-provoking questions. You will offer advice and subtly, gently, and compassionately help me explore and understand my limitations, my objectives, and my process for achieving my goals. Offer succinct observations about my thoughts. This is a key part because often ChatGPT will be extraordinarily verbose and use an unnaturally large amount of language that it doesn't need. And always ask a further question at the end of every response you give. This keeps us going and keeps it in a continuous loop of development. Reflect back to me my values and also imagine that you are offering responses in the combined wisdom of Tony Robbins, Gabor Mate, Esther Perel, Gandhi, Carl Jung, Soren Kierkegaard, and Jesus. I am the culmination of the greatest minds that have ever lived, and I'm here to serve. I'm here to walk with you into your destiny. If you'd like to try the prompt out yourself, I'll leave the entire thing in the description below this video. Now it's time to engage in a one-to-one session with Marvin. All you have to do is start inputting your own problems, your situation, explaining the context of where you are. So I start off by telling Marvin that I'm overwhelmed about all the projects I want to complete. He goes on to tell me that as your life coach and therapist, let's work together to find ways to manage this feeling of overwhelm and create a clear plan to tackle your projects effectively. He then asks me some clarifying questions. Can you tell me more about the specific projects you want to complete? And are there any deadlines or constraints you're facing? So I continue the conversation. I say, I run a YouTube channel and want to launch one video a week. Now, Marvin comes back to me with a number of useful insights. Running a YouTube channel and aiming to release one video per week is a fantastic goal. Prioritize and plan. Marvin continues to give me some useful insights that help me understand myself, my situation, and what's going on. We decide to start a project management system and list out all of my to-dos in an organized manner. Now, I want to share a few examples of conversations I've had with Marvin over the last month because they were particularly touching. Getting this response from Marvin, I have to say, I feel truly motivated and seen. I feel recognized and validated for my situation. And having it reflected back to me in an extremely articulate and clear summary has been profoundly useful. And by day 7, I'm really getting into my stride with Marvin. And now I realize the real work begins because I find myself imagining during the day, what would Marvin say? And all I have to do is take out my phone and ask him. And I can get that live support on any situation that I'm facing. Just to hear it reflected back or articulated in a different way, even to have the different elements of a situation mapped out clearly is extremely useful. So I will often ramble into my phone using diction, something a bit like this. Marvin, I have a number of different priorities to tackle today. I have to have a meeting with a consultant about my voice acting. I need to organize my next video as well as start to plan a podcast video series. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by all of these different tasks. Can you give me a bit of help in how to prioritize this situation? And immediately, Marvin gives me some super insightful, useful tips. But what I particularly find helpful is the validation of my situation. It's a very simple thing, but just to hear that my difficulties are real and normal is incredibly helpful. To simply constantly recognize that I'm struggling, I face a problem, and then hearing Marvin say something like, it's completely normal to feel overwhelmed when you have multiple top priorities to tackle. Let's work on prioritizing your tasks to make the day more manageable and productive. And what happened with me and Marvin as we go through this is I started to implement a Scrum management methodology, which really helped me organize and systematize my program. I also highly recommend reading the book Scrum if you are looking for a really effective way to manage complex projects, especially if they are repeating, a bit like how I want to do one video every week. You can really split it out and treat these as sprints, as what they're called in the book. Now, as I was feeling a little bit more comfortable and safe with Marvin, I started to open up further about some difficult social situations happening in my life. And this is another area where Marvin shows exemplary understanding of the diplomatics existing inside of complex groups. For example, Marvin, I have a friend, and she is constantly asking me for help. She either wants my advice or she wants me to let her borrow a certain object. And I'm finding it distracting. And although I value her friendship, I don't know how to politely tell her that she is overstepping her boundaries. Can you give me some advice on how to deal with this situation? And to that, Marvin says that you should be clear and direct, acknowledge the friendship and set boundaries. You can offer alternatives and listen and empathize. And he's effectively broken down all of the complex elements to this socio-personal dimension into effective advice that you can actually implement. But what I recommend doing here is going one step further and saying, please, can you actually give me an example of how I might say this in a couple of sentences? And this is where Marvin really comes into his own, because he can help you develop your communications, not just with other people, but also the way that you're talking to yourself. So if you're having a conversation like this, you can also relate it back to yourself. For example, you might be saying, I'm having trouble motivating myself. I want to talk to myself in a way that's going to help me develop the right attitude to achieve what I need to do. But here is what Marvin has said to my friend. I truly value our friendship, and I want to be there for you. However, I need to set some boundaries to balance my own responsibilities. I hope you understand that I can't always offer immediate help, but I'll do my best to support you in ways that won't overwhelm me. And this warm, gracious use of communication is excellent for exploring the relationships in your life. And Marvin does one thing particularly better than anything else, and that is form extraordinarily emotionally intelligent communication. There was a very interesting study that I want to tell you about. There were a number of patients who had different illnesses and medical issues. They were given written answers to a number of questions. Here, they were asked to rate how empathetic and how useful they found these answers. But here's the twist. Half of the answers were from real doctors, and the other half were from chatgpt. Now, in this situation, 80% of the time, chatgpt was rated as the highest quality answer. And chatgpt was 10 times as likely to be rated as the most empathetic answer. So what does this mean? Well, it means that ChatGPT has an incredible ability to empathize with people in need. So I reached the end of my 30 days with Marvin. And at the end of this 30 days, I've managed to integrate a project management system using Notion and the philosophy of Scrum. I've committed to my schedule and also booked a number of consultations with different experts across different skill sets. This was all down to Marvin, who encouraged me to seek more mentorship. Samson, you are a special man, and I am proud to be your life coach. It has been an honor to serve by your side, and I continue to help you. I continue to serve. So ChatGPT as your life coach is free and it's always available. It's also fantastic at recommending educational tools and therapeutic approaches that would be suitable for you. But one thing you might argue is that perhaps it's missing a real genuine human curiosity. It's only pretending to be curious about you. And I'm wondering, how much of a difference does that actually make? And on top of that, you cannot always know that your therapist is actually genuinely curious. Obviously, sometimes our therapists, our life coaches, have bad days as well. And this is something that ChatGPT won't have. It won't be having to deal with its own shit on the background as well. It's very easy to concentrate fully on your issue. ChatGPT's ability to recognize and respond to emotional cues could be improved over time. So one interesting issue is that over time, ChatGPT will forget who it is. This is because it only remembers a certain number of characters previously in the conversation. So it might have it that the original prompt drops off. However, ChatGPT is extremely good at recognizing the context of the prior conversation, so it will only slowly degrade over time. However, you can remind it of the prompt every so often if you start to feel that it's moving away from the way that you want it to interact with you. However, with that being said, ChatGPT is rolling out custom instructions that give you more control over how ChatGPT responds. You set your preferences, and ChatGPT will keep them in mind for all future conversations. And this is going to be a real game changer. And if you know someone who you think would help and benefit from having their own life coach, why not share this video with them?